I think first and foremost, let's just remember that Keir Starmer has not been involved in this ceasefire at all. It's been instigated and led by Pakistan. And the reality is, with Keir Starmer, I mean, he has just dithered from the outset of this conflict, and he has failed to provide any strong and necessary leadership to protect British interests in the regions. And that's not just me saying that. Our allies in the region have said that as well. So these are our GCC allies that he's now going to see. We have over 250,000 British nationals in the region. We have our armed forces personnel. We have our bases in the region. Where was Keir Starmer in terms of protecting and defending them at the outset of this conflict? So I can't speak for him in terms of what he will achieve, but what I can say is that his dithering has effectively shown immense weakness to our adversaries in the world, and also at a time when our allies needed strength and they wanted British support, Britain simply wasn't there, and that's shameful.
The UK has a long way to go. We don't want another Neville Chamberlain. Do we agree? We don't want Neville Chamberlain.
Let me just say this. I've been a long-standing critic of the government when it comes to international presence and leveraging British influence in the world. Britain has always been very strong out there, and we're proud of our country, you know, on the international stage historically, and I am, particularly from our time in government. I saw that. Look at the Russia-Ukraine war and how Britain just led the way and paved the way. That's what Britain is good at, and you get that with strong leadership. We just don't have that strength of leadership, quite frankly, at all with the British government right now. The incumbents in post, and obviously people, personnel come and go. And it's done a lot of harm to Britain's reputation on the world stage. There's no doubt about that. I hear that in my international interactions. I hear that across the world. I heard that in America. I was in the States in February, and I came back, and the next day, actually, the Iran conflict happened. But the Americans are very candid and very open with me. I hear that from our dear friends in the GCC, who we have long-standing relationships with. I used to work in the GCC, so these are deep and personal ties. I hear this even across Europe. So under Keir Starmer, Britain is being empty-chaired, I feel. It's very serious because people do not see us as strong, reliable. We're not putting forward the thought leadership and the strength of leadership that we would, you know, normally provide. And with that, you have to be propositional. You have to have ideas. You have to have, you know, real, not just determination, but you have to put money where your mouth is as well. So on defence and security, that is where the British government is failing and is very weak. We're still waiting for this defence investment plan, which, you know, no one knows where it is. And there's a big defence conference in London today. In fact, Kemi Badenoch will be speaking there. But this is a time where the British government should be there, speaking very strongly about investment in defence and protecting our country and protecting our allies. And sadly, we're not seeing that. The fact of the matter is Israel has a right to defend its country, and they're defending their country from Iranian-backed terrorist proxy Hezbollah. So Iran can say what they want, but it is their Iranian proxies that they fund and they equip that is attacking Israel. You've asked about whether or not we should be putting more pressure on Israel. Well, the British government vacated that chair a long time ago because the Israeli government simply do not listen to the British government, and that's self-evident and has been for many months because the British government chose to just be critical of the Israeli government during the time of the Gaza conflict rather than being constructive in any way, and that applied across a range of issues in terms of, you know, aid, humanitarian aid, misquoting of figures, misrepresentation of the situation on the ground. But the reality is, if we want to see an end to this conflict, Iran has to stop sponsoring their terrorist proxies around the region and bring this to a credible and serious end. That is how we're going to get a ceasefire, and that is how everyone will basically be part of this ceasefire, and that's really what's at stake right now. We know that J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United United States will travel to Pakistan at the weekend for further talks. We can't speculate. Let us see what evolves from these talks. But I'm afraid for Britain to now try and sort of present itself as a kingpin in this ceasefire is just simply vacuous, and it demonstrates the fact that Britain has been weak from the outset since this conflict began.
It is an incredible partnership that you have here with the Royal Saudi Air Force, the RAF and BAE, I think for the best part of 50 years operating here in a really joined up way, which is so important to our defence. And that's why it's a real pleasure and a privilege and an honour to be here, to see what you do and to understand how you work together, and never has that been more important.
First and foremost, let me just be very clear about my party's position, because I spoke as soon as those strikes happened. I was out on the media at the time. I made it abundantly clear that Britain should be protecting our people, our assets and our personnel. That's 250,000 British nationals in the region. That's our military personnel, those in our armed forces that are serving our country and protecting our allies as well as our bases. We were absolutely right to take that position. And when it comes back to our Gulf allies, they were also very critical of Britain for not doing enough to protect our own British nationals, our own sovereign bases, our own British armed forces personnel. So absolutely, that is the right thing to do. Nobody wants war and conflict. Let me be very clear about that. Nobody wants that. But at the same time, Iran is a threat to our country domestically in the United Kingdom. Let me just remind your viewers of that we cannot forget. In the same way in which the countries that Iran sides with are equally a threat to our country. Russia, North Korea, China, look at what they do in our own country. Look at how they threaten us all. It is right that we stand up to our adversaries, and it's right that we back our allies. And my party has been very strong and very clear on that from day one. I'm not going to speculate on anything right now, because this is just a fast-moving situation. But fundamentally, Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. And if you go back to last summer, June in fact, when America took out offensive action against Iran's nuclear capabilities, we backed those strikes. We don't want to see Iran in this way, in which they have underground bunkers where they are basically looking at developing or potentially developing nuclear warheads, which is basically what the intelligence and the information has demonstrated. That is a threat to the world. That's a threat to all of us. So we should always be mindful of that first and foremost. No one wants to see long-standing war and conflict in the way in which we have been. But at the same time, Iran has not cooperated with the IAEA. Iran has not been open about its nuclear material. It hasn't been processing nuclear material above ground. It's been doing it in bunkers. It's not been allowing international, overseas advisors to see any of this, which is what normal countries do, by the way. So we need to ensure that the world is a safer place, and having Iran without nuclear weaponry would make that a safer place. But I don't want to speculate as to where any of this is going right now.